Warning: this podcast may contain spoilers as well as coarse language. Viewer discretion is advised.
Oh boy, everybody. It's it's that time of the week again. It's time for another episode of Violet Everweekly by the Our Anime Podcast. We're on episode 7 now. Wow. About halfway through the whole show. I am Lux, otherwise known as Mozilla Fennekin. Rejoining me again is Kaverick.
Hello there.
Hey. And our two special guests for this week, number one, we have Vincent Black.
Greetings from the Middle East.
Wow. And also Riorp.
Hello from Sweden.
Wow. We've got all sorts of people.
Yeah.
People from all sorts of places this episode. And, yeah, this, I kind of mentioned last week, last episode was going to be the last time we were going to have signups. Thank you for everyone that has applied. I think we have enough for now. If anyone is disappointed that they didn't get to sign up, or even maybe if you did sign up and by some chance you don't get into the show, there might still be opportunities to join later on. It's still undecided, but we might do another show like this for a future season. It's still kind of up in the air, but we are definitely talking about the possibility of doing that, because we kind of want to. It's just a matter of will we. And, yeah, so this episode, there is a lot I want to talk about this episode, but I also think I should address the elephant in the room. Last week was a complete and utter disaster of cataclysmic proportions. A lot of people were not particularly fond of what was said in that episode. We can say this person said that and they did that. I personally blame myself as the host for not engaging with the discussion very well, partially because of my opinion on the show, and also just because I've kind of taken this approach where I want to sit back and let the guests do most of the talking, which I don't think is a bad idea or anything, but sometimes it backfires. Sometimes it doesn't work out the way you want it to. And so, last episode, things got a little bit out of control for people, and we've kind of gotten some shit for it. So this week, Sorry, something popped up. This week, I'm going to be talking a lot more. I've got a lot more to say. And also, there's been a growing concern that the podcast has gotten a little bit negative about the show. We've gotten some pretty cynical and critical guests. So this week, we've got Riorp and Vincent because they are... I knew well in advance that they were...
Basically.
Yeah, they were a lot more positive about this show. So... yeah, so hopefully we're going to have a much more positive discussion. And of course, all this I'm saying, it's a lot of... I appreciate all of the comments we've gotten last week on YouTube, on Reddit, and on the newly opened Discord that we have for the channel, where a lot of people have been giving ideas for the podcast, suggestions, feedback, all sorts of things. And yeah, this week... hopefully, we're going to have a lot better discussion, a lot more engaging discussion, and a lot more positive discussion, because this week, I promise I'm not saying this just to get people on my side again. I'm saying from the bottom of my heart that this was by far the best episode of the show to date. And for the first time ever in this series, I'm really feeling the hype that has been placed all this time. I really thought this episode played to Violet Evergarden's strengths, both visually, audibly. Every aspect of this episode I thought was fantastic. So let's get into the episode. Yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Who should we start with for this week?
We should probably start with the beginning. So apparently it's an adaptation of the very first chapter of the novel. Yeah, no matter that it's like the seventh episode of the show, it's still the first chapter, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I can sneak in here as I am a source reader, so if anything is, if you're asking anything about the source, you can ask me.
Yeah.
And yes, this is the first chapter of the first volume, so you can get like, it's not told chronologically in the books. Back to you, Kenrick.
Well, yeah, that's a pretty good episode overall. I enjoyed it for what it's worth. Like the story itself was solid. I could see myself being intrigued if it was a first like impression of Violet Evergarden. Not sure how it works as a seventh episode. It's good. It's still good, but I feel like this story trick when you kind of introduce people like right in the middle of business is a very good way to get people hooked, and I feel like it would have worked as a first episode as well in the series. That's what I think about it.
Yeah, when I heard that this was the first episode, I really was not that surprised. There were some things that I felt like this. I'll just say right now, maybe before I totally reveal it, this episode had a very, very big reveal that we've been waiting for. I'll just fucking get into it. They announced that the Major is fucking dead in this episode. They finally fucking did it after 7 episodes.
I mean, no, not really.
Yeah,
They never find the body, and if you
Yeah.
don't find the body, they're not
Okay.
dead yet.
Well, okay, I'll give you that. But even still, it's like we've gotten about as close to a confirmation as we possibly could at this point, which is kind of
Although,
what we've been
I will
looking for.
say that I would dislike it if the Major were to return in the anime.
Yeah,
Oh
it
yeah,
would go
definitely.
against some of the themes that the show has been portraying.
yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But anyway,
yeah.
the Major reveal. I think the show has been building up to this for a little bit, and I mean, we've been railing on this piece for about the entire podcast about like, oh, when are they like why won't they just say the Major's whatever? And you know, if this was revealed in episode 1, then maybe it might not have been so impactful, but now it feels like at least a couple of the episodes in the past have contributed to making it a little bit better of a scene than it could have been.
Yeah, if we didn't get anything of Violet Evergarden's like own character development and they just dropped that on us instantly, it wouldn't really mean as much as like her mental breakdown and her complete freak out when she learns that he's dead.
Uh-huh.
Why would that be impactful for us if that was episode 1? Now it's really, well, depending on your opinion of the show, but it's still really special, like
Yeah,
seeing
but-
her like that.
But if I recall correctly, that scene isn't here in the first chapter of the novel, right?
No, if you anything
Oh.
with like Violet's actual character development, we get in this episode, like Gilbert's dead, when she thinks about like how
That she's
she's
a murderer,
killed people.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
None of that is in the light novel, and it's not ever in the light novel. We don't really see her realizing what she has done. That doesn't happen in the novels, which I'm really happy that Kyoani went this way with it.
I mean, yeah, the thing I like the most about Violet so far is that it's not that she can't feel emotions, like that's where a robot would be. It's that she can't define what she feels. So, over the last few episodes, you see that she's coming to understand how emotions work, and that in and of itself is both a curse and a blessing. Because it's a blessing because everyone should be able to feel things normally, and that's like human nature. But the curse is that she's killed a lot of people, she's done horrible things, and it's her lack of realizing that helps shield her from it. And it's what Hodgins was alluding to in the first episode. He's like, you don't realize you are literally burning up, because
Mhm.
she doesn't realize what she's done. All the guilt and the trauma from the war that should be haunting her isn't there until she realizes exactly like the emotional capacity of a human beings, so that she realizes that everyone she killed could have had hopes, dreams, promises, things that she had killed with them and are gone and never will come back.
Yeah, I can agree with you here. But it's kind of like a complaint to me. Because the scene, like, there was a certain disconnect for me, not enough consistency, I would say, between the main part of the episode, like the after service doll, which Violet had in this episode, and that flashback realization and learning about Gilbert's death. What I mean by that is that the main body of the episode was concerned, was focused mostly on losing your significant one, like the person you care the most about, and it's fine. Like it's a good theme. It's in the vein of the show, but at the same time, it's not. It doesn't transfer well. It doesn't relate well with the next uh, like moment when she thinks about herself being a murderer. Like there is a certain disconnect between those themes, and they do not align very well within the episode. Like if the episode was focusing more on the war itself, or like a war veteran, for example, then it would make sense for her to reflect on her past in this episode. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, but
personally, okay, go ahead.
I see your point, but at the same time, I really don't agree. If anything, this is one of the the best moments to actually make her think about that, because it's the first episode that really deals with death, and so it feeds into her like killing people at death and loss, and she also has her moment when she realizes that, or well, when she's told that Gilbert's death. Like Gilbert said, all of it feeds kind of into each other, and it, for me, I feel like the core theme of this episode is strong and overarching, even between the two parts.
I mean, yeah, personally, I see it as a bridge of sorts between the two parts of the episode, because jumping straight from a client's request story, right, and the ending with characters, with the Violet's character development as we are used to, and then straight jumping to her meeting with the woman who reveals that Gilbert is dead, would not work that well. Like, there would be some sort of tonal dissonance in there if you just jump from here to there. So that scene with her while traveling, thinking about the nature of death and how what she did in the war was not okay, it bridges well into her discovery about the Major, because the Major was one of the reasons she is like what she is. She justified all that happened because of the Major being there to support her ideas or her notions of self-preservation, in that, like, you're just a war machine. You are not meant to have feelings in that way. So by bridging those two with the scene about her thinking of how wrong she was, it makes sense to deliver the news about the Major later.
Yeah, I can see it, but at the same time, I don't know. Like yeah, there is a certain theme of death in the episode, which I will address a bit later, I guess. But still, it feels like if the episode itself was based on the war, or like just connected with that episode, with that period of time, it would be better. Well, at least for me. Like I'm like many episodic shows, and all of them like have these little stories in each of them, which are consistently poignant on one topic. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I mean,
both see that. Like, The issue here is that if you are gonna concentrate on one topic, I'd rather have the bridge in there rather than not at all.
While his internet is like dying, I can fill in as the Kyoani fanboy.
Yeah.
We can't hear you, Vincent.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to the next topic or something like that. Or do you have anything to say, Moss, about it?
Just in general, I mean, I see what you're saying, Cav. I still just, I mean, I don't know, I understand your complaints. I still personally disagree. I thought as a whole, this was like probably the best structured episode of the whole show. I just thought it just reached point A to point B to point C to point D. Everything flowed together really well for me. Like even I guess we kind of talked a bit about the major reveal. So to comment on that again, I am actually kind of surprised at how much I liked the reveal. Because I've always been saying that, like, oh, they're just going to reveal it whenever, and I'm going to be like, yeah, of course. I personally like that they revealed it in a very surprising and kind of casual way, where just that one lady she just says it. She's just like, oh yeah, and the late Major Gilbert, and she's like, wait, what the fuck? And it's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, her whole emotional outburst at the end, I wasn't as much of a fan of, but I at least kind of like how, you know, they didn't have to like stop everything to say, oh, by the way, Major's dead, maybe.
I want to comment that you just used emotional burst and Violet in the same sentence.
Well, for once, she actually has some emotional burst, which is really nice.
She was pretty emotional this episode.
Yeah. Ishidata, the director, he said in an interview that this is gonna be watching Violet grow up. And like, as like how kids don't really understand emotions and such, but they like still kind of have them. Like a baby can be happy and sad. We all know it. They scream a lot. But like, we see how like she unlocks or like gets an achievement unlocked with feelings like loneliness in last episode, and she felt inadequate. Wait, yeah, right. That was also last episode's inadequate, and like, so it's really nice, like, just seeing her starting to understand emotions, and now when she finally understands most of them, at least, she just like, well, cracks under herself, under her own guilt, which is, I find it as a really interesting way to tell a story. Like, this is like a coming of age story, but you dial it back in maturity, like way, way, way back.
This is why it doesn't make sense to me that this is chapter 1. Like, it starts with her mid-development. So I very much appreciate the way the anime is handling it, where it shows us her first as someone who's barely capable of normal life due to her upbringing as a child soldier, and then you start seeing her with time skips and different clients and seeing her develop, and then her outbursts with the major thing makes sense. Otherwise, it would just come out of nowhere.
Yeah, the light novel really suffers from like how it's structured, how it's not really about Violet in itself, not the first volume at least. I've made a total post about how much like the second volume screws up the entire franchise, or well, the series. But basically, like, Violet was never supposed to be the main character we follow in the first book, which we only follow the side short stories. Those characters, Leon in the last episode was chapter 4's character, and Oscar now in this episode.
Or as I like to call him, Taki-sensei.
Taki-sensei.
Taki-sensei with a beard.
Yeah. So speaking about the whole episode and Violet herself, it's probably my favorite Violet to date. Like, I liked, for once, how she acted, how she showed emotions, how kind of mature she was. Like, and I was in general complaining about how the problems in the previous episodes seemed trivial to me. with like kids having like these little problems, and Violet typing letters and stuff for them. It wasn't as interesting to me. But this episode, it felt adult for once because it dealt with adult problems. And this is something I was looking for since the very start. That's why I like this episode. Um, you can see this, like the guy. What was his name once again? I didn't.
Oscar.
Taki Sensei.
Taki.
Taki Sensei.
Taki
yes.
Sensei, yeah. Yeah, you could see him being in the focus. He's alcoholic. He has a severe case of alcoholism, which is something anime in general tries to avoid and does not address too often, which I like. I mean, I like that the Violet Evergarden tried to address it, like, and
It's usually something that
show
kind of
way.
gets like thrown to the side or in like a flashback. Like, yeah, my dad was an alcoholic, and they just leave it at that.
Yeah, or it's made like in a comedic way. With, oh yeah, I get drunk every now and then.
Yeah, I like.
More in like workplace anime.
Yeah, I like how it's addressed in general. And then there is this writing block, and him trying to write this story about her deceased daughter, which is also kind of tragic in itself. It's a degree of drama which I really like, and I feel like it was very well handled in this episode.
And
Yeah,
I want to jump in. I want to say again how well structured this episode was. I thought they did a really great job at showing this character instead of just telling everything. They kind of hide it from you for a few minutes that like what exactly is going on with this person, and then eventually you kind of learn, oh, he has a dead wife, a dead daughter, and the way like I don't know, just the way they reveal that when they do, and it's like I go back and think about all of the like what I know about this character up to this point. I'm like, oh, that all makes sense. It all connects, and it's like they really lead you into that reveal in a really smooth way.
yeah.
I think okay. What I really like about Violet Evergarden so far is that sort of like the fantasy aspect. Something like in other shows, I would be against Violet of all people coming to Oscar for his ghostwriting because that's like convenience at work. You know, she looks like his daughter. She has certain issues that he could empathize with and stuff like that. But it's that sort of thing. Like you see, there are time skips. They are picking the right clients to showcase development, and that's the thing I really like. It's a fantasy aspect of it. Like, it's not gonna happen in real life, honestly, if you have writer's block and you get the exact person step on your doorstep who can fix it. But it does happen here, and it feels magical.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to what Carrick was saying and what you've been saying through a lot of these episodes, how they do not deal with mature subjects
Yeah,
enough.
maturity, yeah.
And for me, it was like, well, yeah, obviously, because Violet Evergarden is not mature enough. If she's supposed to be
Yeah.
like the messenger, the mediator, she can't be more immature than the subject at hand, which was I always want to say, like, yeah, no problem, we're getting there, which we did now finally.
Yeah, I get this argument and this point of view. It's just something I personally like have a problem with. I can see the logic
yeah.
behind it, though. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. I can also see like your side of the view. Like, yeah, sure, it makes sense within the story, but it's boring while I'm watching it. So why would I care?
Like, yeah, like if you go back to previous episodes, there was this guy who was like disliking dolls for no reason, and he was like sharing his story and then fall in love with Violet. It was kind of okay, it's fine. And then this episode you deal with like real trauma, like with real consequence real death, and that's where you feel things actually.
Since we are on the subject of comparing to the last episode, I felt that the last episode kind of like pulled its punches, while this one didn't at all. Like the last episode had sort of surface level tension, and there wasn't much to work with in the form of romance. Like it was one episode romance. Only towards the second half did you see the feelings, and there was no confession to speak of. So you wanted that sense of closure, let's say, rather than the vague sense of whatever they gave us at the end of that episode. This one was almost the exact opposite. It was like fulfilling, and it ended even like not even took the whole episode. It took 80 minutes or so, and they managed to make it a fulfilling story with a good emotional gut punch without needing to pull any tricks or anything.
Yeah, it has a very clear arc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I like the emotional punches this episode and like climaxes. But there is a long-standing issue. My issue with the show is that it doesn't really use its soundtrack really well, and I feel like the music itself is a bit too upbeat for the show. Like when uh Taki Sensei was confessing that his daughter is like not in this world, and Violet was crying, like there were tears dropping down from her cheek. There was like some beat music playing on the background, and it was ruining immersion. I don't know why they do it. It's not even the first episode they do it, and yeah, I hope they kind of address the issue later on. We'll see.
For me, the soundtrack is a bit too like fantastical. Like, sure, we can kind of say it's a fantasy, but this it's way more grounded than like what I think of when I think fantasy. And like I've talked about this before with like some friends of mine who are also watching the show. There's a song in the Oblivion soundtrack, like the Elder Scrolls series, that's called Sunrise of Flutes. And it sounds kind of similar. It's actually
Yeah, actually that's a good comparison. Yeah, it kind of sounds like from a fantasy game in general, like the soundtrack. It's kind of weird to me. Like I just want it to be a bit more melodramatic or dramatic in general. Or when you don't know how to use the music, you just do not use it at all, because Haunting Silence is a pretty good instrument on its own.
Though I will say, how the music is played during, like, when she walks over the water, like, how fantastical it sounds, how much of a fantasy game it sounds, it really, like, heightens what it is, what the scene actually is. It's like, I could believe she was walking on water there.
Yeah,
because it was looking fucking amazing.
I want to talk about how that... I want to talk about how that scene is the best scene of like the entire season. But first, on the soundtrack, I don't know. Like, Cav, I saw you were complaining about this on the R Anime Discord. I don't know. I personally did not. The only real problem, if you even want, I guess it was more like a gripe with this episode, the soundtrack, as I just around like the 13-minute mark or so, they reuse a song from that I'm pretty sure was in a past episode. It sounded really familiar, and it's just like it just came up, and I'm like, oh, it's this song. I guess this is like the uplifting song of the soundtrack that they're going to use for all these scenes. That was really my only gripe. I thought the soundtrack for the whole episode was just fine. Really?
You mean the track that is used for like when they read the letters? It's usually that sound.
It's when like in this episode is basically when Violet is trying to help this. She's like giving this guy ideas on like how to get this girl home or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Now it's as well this gap between like phenomenal visuals and really forgettable host, which also kind of stands out for me.
Yeah, for me, actually, I don't have that problem. I mentioned earlier how I like the fantasy aspect of the show most, so the OST kind of complementing that is just fine with me. Though I don't think I like any particular tracks, I just think it works well for me.
Yeah, within the show. I see how it is. Yeah, so yeah, that scene where Violet turns into Jesus for a bit.
Oh my god, that was so cool!
Violet
Yeah.
Ever Christ. Oh yeah, I will say that was really, really cool. And I'm not a fan of
It was
3D
cool,
shots, but Jesus Christ. Himself, Jesus Christ herself was walking on water, and I will accept that 3D shot for that.
10 out of 10 would worship.
Yeah. Step aside,
It was
Haruhi.
good.
You have a new contender.
Yes, that scene was pretty good. Like really good, I would say. In general, how it was portrayed and how Taki Sensei was reminded of his daughter. It was just a very well directed scene in general. Because like this tears in his eyes, him recalling it, like the scenes with his daughter in general, him regretting and even maybe saying farewell words, like just coming to terms with her death was impressive.
I actually really liked that part because it had a line I really dug, let's say, is that facing your emotions head on is kinda really hard. But there's that one moment he just gives into it all and he says, I wish she hadn't died. Like,
Oh,
just
yeah.
straight on. I just wish she hadn't died. That's it. No, I wish I could have said farewell. I wish she would have had more time. No, I just wish she hadn't died. That's it. It's simple as that. I really like that.
Tears. I'll
Yeah,
admit
we-
it. That was. I had tears in my eyes. Like, even just thinking about that line in specific, which was like the breaking point for me, where I went from like, oh man, this is sad, to like, oh man, fuck me. Can I stop crying? How do I?
Lie down. Try not to cry. Cry a lot.
Yeah, I have a. I cry really easily when it comes to father-daughter stories. Like anything
Yeah.
where it comes to like where you have to protect something or someone and you fail, and it's just like, oh man,
And
I'm guilty.
and it wasn't even his fault. It's just
No.
shit just happened, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Something you just gotta feel bad for him.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what makes it something so much better for me personally. It's just when someone is blaming themselves for something they can't do anything about. Like it really like ticks a perfect little box that goes make Ryorp cry.
Yeah, that episode is kind of hard to describe because you should just see it for yourself and how it works. But it was like really beautifully animated, directed, and presented overall. We need more stuff like this, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely think this was the strongest individual story of the episode. I thought Taki Sensei was the best side character that we have seen so far.
Mhm.
Just overall, it was a really, really solid episode. Just, I really think it was just great on all fronts.
Yeah, it was
I would
it was
agree.
pretty good. Yeah.
Um,
So, do I have anything else to say about it?
I don't know. I just have like minor notes. Like I kind of liked how responsible Violet tries to be in the beginning, where she's trying to take care of the guy, and it's like she's trying to make him carbonara, and she doesn't even know what the fucking
Oh,
egg
yeah.
is.
Oh, speaking of carbonara, actually, there is one little note. Like he wants to eat it, and Violet tries her best to cook it. But then, in one of the flashbacks, we can see his daughter eating it as well, and it's not even mentioned. It's
Wait,
just
really?
this. Yeah, it's just this
So it's
minor
like his
detail.
daughter's favorite food. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's just this minor detail which makes difference. I like this type of things, like when it's a little nuance which makes sense, and it's kind of connected with me, and that's one of the reasons why I was immersed in the episode.
Oh wow!
Do
Like I
love
just
my
randomly,
pasta.
yeah, just randomly clicked on the episode and there it is.
Pasta.
Oh, that is really cool.
Yeah.
And I also just kind of like how the episode just like opened up on a play just to introduce the fact that Violet is ghostwriting for a playwriter. I said in the last episode, I always like it when this anime is like coming up with new ideas for what the auto memoir dolls do. So seeing her actually like help write a stage play was pretty cool, in my opinion. Just conceptually.
Yeah, and it seemed like she was actively trying to help, not just type in whatever he was dictating.
It was
Yeah, which was
Yeah,
good. It's the development that we wanted, that we needed from her.
Yeah, she's gone
Yeah.
from passive to assertive, which is really nice to see.
Yeah, and I thought it was also just really endearing how like she got really invested into the story like as she was writing it, and then it's revealed that it's for children, that it's a children's play that she's connecting so strongly with, and I think that's just I don't know, it kind of shows the like innocence or like I don't know, just the general
underdeveloped
inexperience.
her emotions are, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah, she
that
was.
It's also another like aspect of her straightforwardness. Like, not many people would go to a playwright and tell them, "I put myself in the shoes of your main character," just like that.
Yeah.
But she was straight on. She says it just like it is because it's such a new feeling to her. And I like that part because it keeps part of her old personality and like sort of injects it into her new developed personality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So there's one more question I wanted to ask. Were you bothered by that girl and her missing tooth?
Oh yeah, I was actually way more bothered by that than I
All the
should have
missing-
been. I was
the
like,
missing
God damn it,
tooth.
God, just fix her teeth.
Yeah, that was weird, but I guess that existed.
I did not notice at all.
You can check the
I
channel
definitely
right now.
noticed it, but it didn't bother me.
Yeah, like
No.
okay, it kind of makes her more adorable, like Moe. Yeah, it's just kind of funny.
Yeah, you like fangs. How about we just remove them?
Massive finger to the audience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Becker, of course, posts fucking Hikari from Demi-chan, who has a fang.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting where the show progresses from now on. Now that Violet knows about the death of Gilbert. Well, I don't know if he kind of accepts it right now because it seems like she doesn't want to accept it. But
Yeah, well, first stage of grief is denial, so I
yeah,
wonder
exactly,
if we're gonna get that.
exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll see how it goes from here. I'm kind of excited for her development.
Yeah,
am too.
I think this. I'm hoping this is the beginning of an upward slope, and that we start getting more episodes that are just this high quality.
Yeah, definitely.
If they keep adapting from the first volume, we're gonna get more about death and loss, which is the core theme of the entire first volume. So if they do that, I'm really hopeful that we're gonna get some really good episodes, and I would say that it hasn't peaked yet if we were to get more
Ooh.
of this.
That's
good.
nice.
Chapter
Yeah,
1
what
is
else?
really nice. This episode is really nice. But it's not the best story for me. It's among the best, but not the best.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah,
Yeah. Is there anything else you guys want to add?
I mean, outside of like production notes, no, because it's the first episode we have like more than 6 key animators on.
Oh, really?
Nice.
Yeah, we've Kyoto Animation has barely used any people on this. They've used really good animators, but just very few of them.
That tends to be the case. Like, I don't know. They don't. I don't know. They just have like an average budget and like an average staff, and it's just people who are just really, really fucking good at their jobs.
Yeah, but
really
this one is actually like different from the rest of the works. They usually like hang around like 7, 8, 9 key animators, but they've had episodes during Violet Evergarden where they've only used 4, and 5 is like the average right now. But this episode wasn't by Kyoto. If you know Animation though, their Osaka branch, which like made most of 3, they were the ones behind this episode. So that's the reason for the difference.
Yeah, I've also heard that the episode director or storyboarder, I'm not sure what they call them, did Euphonium episode 10, which is one of my favorites, by the way.
Yes,
Euphonium season 2
it was
episode
the
10.
same episode director and storyboarder for that. It's the best like a director thing storyboarder for in the entire Animation though studio. I'd say, because of, well, he's really talented, but because he's not a part of the main Kyoto Animation, he's not getting any like directorial positions.
Since we were speaking about production here, I thought there was a really cool shot when she remembers what Hodgins was saying and then looks down at her hands and sees blood just all of a sudden. I really liked it. It came out of nowhere. Like, you see the background behind her changing, and I thought that's where it would stop, like where the imagery would stop. But then she looks down and suddenly there's blood on her hands. It's a really direct metaphor, but I still thought it was a cool shot.
Yeah, it was a pretty harrowing scene.
Just that background changed in itself when she stands there in her doll outfit in the middle of the battlefield. I thought also that was a really nice shot. Like, it wasn't even changing her outfit or anything, like going back in time. It was just like her in her current state realizing what she did back then. With her current state being symbolized by her outfit and her past with the...
This has me torn, actually. Like, I want more about Violet and what happened in the war, what happened to the Major, what was their relationship like. But at the same time, I am enjoying the episodic nature of the show and don't really want it to stop. So at this moment, I'm not even sure what I want.
I mean, you could combine both in one episode if you want to, and with development past, you can develop present events as well. Like, if a person, like I was saying before, like war veteran, for example, it could address both his like current problem as well as make Violet reflect on her past.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah, we'll see where it goes.
Hopefully.
We also got that whole like loose thread of Gilbert's older brother confronting her. Like, it was, as much as this episode brought it up a little, but it felt like there's more to that scene, that ending of episode 5 than we've been shown so far.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. But I at least appreciate that they addressed it finally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think we're done. Anything else?
Not really.
No, we're good.
No?
We're good.
Yeah.
But if you're listening to this podcast while not watching the show, you're doing something wrong.
You are doing something wrong. I don't.
Yeah.
I hope there's no one like that, but yeah.
I've had people wiki series they don't want to watch, so weirder things have happened.
Damn.
Spend multiple hours just listening to a podcast to a show they won't watch.
Yeah.
The most hyped show of the season 2, and they're like, nah. I mean, I could watch a podcast, but actually watching the show, nah.
I mean,
Yeah, let's let's just listen to the podcast that is literally longer than the show itself.
Yeah.
I mean, I welcome such devoted fans which don't even want to watch the anime, but they're still listening to us because they like us so much, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly.
I'll have
we
my
have
voice is
fans.
angelic.
Oh, something none of us have even said, but like the ending title with like the empty brackets, that was really cool.
Yeah, that was something, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, like redacted, whatever.
Yeah.
All right, I guess we're done.
Yeah,
now we're done. Yeah.
Finally, we're done. Yeah, really, really good discussion, guys. I thought this was really great, just like the episode of the show. It was a lot of fun. Thank you, Cav, Riorp, Vince, for being on here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being a good host, Moss.
Oh, well, thank you for being a great guest, Cav.
Oh, shit, I'm demoted. No.
That's right. And thank you, everyone who's been listening to the podcast, whether this is the first or the 7th episode that you've been listening to. We really appreciate that. Make sure you just make sure to subscribe if you haven't done that yet. Follow us on Twitter at Tokyo Podfathers and check out the Discord, the publicly available Discord, where you can chat with the rest of the gang and talk about stuff. That's cool. See you next week on another episode of Violet Everweekly. Bye-bye.
See ya.
See ya.
See ya.